when most people think of fall, they think of pumpkins or maybe sweet potatoes, depending on what region of the world you're in. But I actually think of green tomatoes that failed to ripen on time. My tomato plant outside is dead. Living in a tiny apartment with only a concrete slab to grow things and planters on, I don't have very much ability to grow much. So I only grow cherry tomatoes. And these are all the green cherry tomatoes. This one has already started turning red a little bit. But, you know, these are not really going to be any good as ripe tomatoes. They're never going to really ripen. They're green. So if you have leftover green tomatoes, you can do fried green tomatoes if they're big. But if they're tiny like this, or if you don't have that many, or if you just don't want to do fried green tomatoes, this is a great recipe to make. If I had more tomatoes in this, I'd make this sort of like as a main dish with rice or pasta, but as I only have this little handful, it's just going to be a cute little side dish that I'm going to eat with some chicken and rice. So let's get to it. I have just cut them up in half. If you were using like large green tomatoes, just dice them, but since these are tiny cherry tomatoes, I just cut them in half to expose the wet insides. And here is a large clove of minced garlic, and I've also got curry powder and salt on the ready. And I just have a tablespoon of butter in my pan, which I'm going to heat up on low heat. I never use a recipe when I make this. I just kind of cook however much green tomato I have. This looks like it's about half a cup or so. So I'm going to write down the recipe in the video description, but just so you know, I don't ever really use a recipe. First, on low heat, you just want to sweat the tomatoes. Since they are underripe green, they need a little longer and a gentler cooking time for this dish. Do not add the garlic up front, otherwise it will burn. I also refrain from adding the curry powder at the start, but I do add the salt. So also, usually about this time of year, all of our hot peppers, which fail to get ripe because we live way too far north for hot peppers, do not get ripe, and so I harvest them. Actually, all the red ones that you see here ripened off the vine, and I harvested these only a few days ago, so they're actually getting pretty ripe. So I'm just going to take a little one of these. These are cayenne peppers. I don't know how hot they are yet, so I'm only going to take this little one and add that also to the tomatoes. Okay, I licked it and it's hot, so that's actually nice. Usually when we grow hot peppers at home, they're not really hot, but this one's nice and hot. I'll just add that when I add the garlic later. This is after about 8 minutes. They have softened and broken down a little bit. At this point, I like to just kind of smash them and encourage them to break down more. What we are looking for is a lot of breaking down and for this to eventually turn into a sort of like sauce almost. Glop, I guess. I know how to make food sound really appetizing, I know. Anyway, at this point, we can add the garlic and the pepper. It should start to smell good immediately. And curry powder makes everything better. This is all to taste, really. Why I don't use a recipe. This is what we call ugly delicious. And last but not least, I did not show this in the initial setup, but you do need to add a little bit of sugar to this. Green tomatoes, like unripe tomatoes, are extremely tart, and the sugar really helps balance everything, especially with the spiciness too. And that's basically it. And behold, its unripe, delicious goodness. Anyway, if you have some green tomatoes out on your vines now, you should make this. It's really tasty.